right, welcome back to GovCon Empire. Today marks the first episode in a new series, Government Contracts for Commercial Real Estate Veteran Housing, Federal Facilities, Warehouses, Clinics, Office Space, and everything in between. So, a little patience can really save you a lot of money while earning you millions. This series is the meat and potatoes, not hype, not theory, not fluff trends, but real pathways, real demand, real strategy, and real money, or where the money resides, rather, right? Now, let's get right into it and talk forecasting, because before we get into strategy, before we talk forms, before we talk regulation, we need to talk timing, because timing matters. Right now, as in 2026, the federal government is not just thinking about housing and space, they are funding it. So what exactly does that mean? Well, over the next several years, beginning right now, the government has allocated tens of billions of dollars toward housing homeless veterans, other government-supported housing programs, disaster and emergency housing, and continued expansion of federally leased commercial real estate, office space, clinics, warehouses, facilities, and everything in between. By the way, that money is not speculative. It is already approved, already forecasted, allocated, and every dollar of it requires space. So now, let's reframe this. For those of you who are aspiring government contractors, the moment you step into government contracting, you are now an investor. Whether you ask for that title or not, congratulations. That is how you need to start seeing yourself, especially in the commercial real estate space. And when dealing with the government or major infrastructure. Now, what are we really talking about? Office space in warehouses. Once again, housing for homeless veterans with the VA. Re-entry housing for justice-involved citizens. FEMA hotel liaison programs when disasters displace families. Yes, that is a thing. We did plenty of that when I worked as a consultant with PSEG, a corporate energy giant out of Long Island, New York. Guest houses for troops in transition. General facilities, and the list goes on and on. All right, so you need to take notes of these things. These are not side projects. These are not feel-good plays. These are not temporary needs. These are permanent operational requirements. Now, let's be very clear. This is not just contracting. This is infrastructure investing. We talked about that in some of the previous videos. Check it out right here on this channel. Now, but let's talk about investors and why most of them fail. A lot of investors think they're impressive just because they have a lot of money. But here is the harsh reality. Investment failure rates sit in between 80 and 90%. So if you're a multimillionaire, but most of your investments fail at that rate, I don't think that's impressive. That tells us that your money likely did not come from business intelligence. It probably came from a talent, inheritance, access, some type of hedge fund, or just timing, because if you truly know how to make millions through intelligence, you can regenerate it. And infrastructure is automatic regeneration. And that is what we are talking about right now. Government allocated commercial real estate. It's how systems become predictable income. Now, as always, legal authority will always be brought into the conversation on this channel. So let's talk FAR. What does FAR mean? Let's ground this in authority. FAR stands for Federal Acquisition Regulation. That is the government's rule book for how it buys, how it evaluates, and how it awards these contracts for commercial real estate and leasing. There is a specific authority. Here is the definition in plain language. Lease acquisition means the acquiring by lease of an interest in improved real estate for use by the government. Plain English, the government is allowed to lease buildings as a normal operating function. So you are not pitching a fantasy. You are positioning a building, an asset inside of a system that already exists. And most importantly, money already set aside or allocated. Now, another legal authority is the CFR. CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulations. The CFR explains how programs operate after Congress funds them. Here is the difference. The FAR explains how the government acquires space. The CFR explains how that space must be utilized. Veteran housing, healthcare, disaster response, re-entry programs, and each one has CFR sections that spell out who qualifies, what services are required, what facilities are acceptable. So compliance is not perfection. Compliance is simple alignment. Now, for those who want everything simple, you need to know compliance is not a curse word. It's not even complicated, okay? So some of you think government contracting feels complicated, and because you are afraid of learning new language, those little learning curves, you hear words like compliance and you run. But let me break it down. Compliance is not some mystical skill that you need to perfect. Compliance means matching the answers that are already given to you. You are not learning from scratch. You are aligning with answers that are already laid out. So basically, it's about accepting the answers that are already provided for you. That is why readers win and guessers lose. Now, the four major plays. There are four primary plays inside commercial real estate government contracting: federal office space, warehouse and logistics, veteran housing communities, disaster and emergency housing, and each one has authority, funding, demand, and long-term lease potential. Now, play one, federal office space. Federal agencies lease office space constantly. Why? Because flexibility beats ownership. This is where the General Services Administration, or GSA, comes in. GSA is the government's landlord, basically. There are standard documents that tell you exactly what they want. Two matter most. GSA Form 1364, this tells you location, square footage, security, build out. And please pause and make sure you're writing this down. If you ever say, I don't know what the government wants, you did not read the form. Now, GSA Form 1217. This breaks down operating costs, taxes, utilities, maintenance. So think about this. They're letting you know you can claim everything and get reimbursed. In real world examples, well, look, I worked on a GSA commercial office space requirement in Wichita Falls, Texas. Small city, big federal mission. I also supported office requirements for NASA in Washington, D.C. Space agency, real estate problem. Rockets still need desks. Yes, because we need the people who are actually controlling everything that happens. The workforce. Now, play two, warehouses and logistics. Warehouses are invisible power. Agencies like FEMA and the VA do not operate without logistics. During my time working with the VA in New Orleans, we created metrics and partnered with companies to lease warehouse space for VA logistics, medical supplies, equipment, emergency response materials. A warehouse does not look exciting until disaster hits, right? Then it becomes priceless. I also supported FEMA warehouse needs in New Orleans and Houston. By the way, you can do this with an unsolicited proposal that's talked about on the page. On this page, you do not need to wait for contracts to advertise, or solicitations to advertise rather. Now, Let's talk veteran housing from SSVF to government adoption. SSVF stands for Supportive Services for Veterans and Families. SSVF funds the services. Housing is the platform. This typically starts by partnering with local SSVF providers. These are non-profit organizations already funding the mission. They need units, operators, compliant facilities. You build community equity, you produce outcomes, you demonstrate stability. Over time, those housing communities can scale into potential VA adoption pathways. Now, let me be clear. This is not automatic, but capacity matters. Some operators already have that capacity: staff, compliance systems, facilities, documentation. In those cases, they may qualify to work more directly with the government. That is how housing moves from charity to infrastructure. But most people will start off the other way, working with the agency. Proof of concept. Bastion Community of Resilience in New Orleans. We built a partnership with Bastion Community of Resilience when I worked for the VA. Bastion is a purpose-built veteran housing community. It consists of 58 apartment units, purpose-built, mission-aligned, outcome-driven, which means this is not theory. This actually exists and it is replicable, which means you can pause, listen to that again, and come up with your way to pitch that same thing with your twist. Another proof of concept here in Houston, Tunnels to Towers. Tunnels to Towers Foundation repurposed a 161-room former hotel into a veterans village. They later expanded with additional comfort homes. We had fellow executive participate in ribbon cuttings. Why does this matter? Because it proves the model. Underperforming commercial properties can become permanent housing infrastructure, not just in Houston, but in many other places, wherever you're at. Atlanta, New York, Chicago, LA, doesn't matter. Now, play 4. Disaster and emergency housing. Disaster housing moves fast. If your property exists and meets criteria, you do not pitch, you respond. Hotels, warehouses, staging facilities. Speed wins, especially with the new FAR overhaul. It's now becoming more about speed. So now, let's do a quick sidebar and talk about subsequent contracts that can go with these housing contracts. Here is something most people miss. Commercial real estate and housing contracts often create follow-on contracts. Construction, architectural and engineering, also called A&E, renovation, maintenance. But notice, those contracts exist because the property exists. Control the property and you control the whole ecosystem. Now, back to commercial real estate. Let's talk forecasting again. The government leases hundreds of millions of square feet nationwide. That means everywhere. VA homeless programs are funded in the billions. SSVF grants alone reach into the hundreds of millions. Demand is not missing. Positioning is, which means they need more of you doing this. Now, let's take a quick pause for the cause and talk consulting for a moment. I got to be very candid with some of you, okay? For those who want one-on-one time, a paid consulting arrangement is required. There is no option where we work together for free. There is no model where we split the profits later. That is not how business or consulting works. Consulting and education are real professions. Now, look, if you are not ready to pay for consulting, that's okay. This channel is still a full library. It gives you components, workforce, compliance, structure, strategy. It's already here on this channel in the Create Your Own Contract series. But one-on-one consulting provides private coaching, project management, and access to uncommon insights, secrets. And as a business person, you should not want free partnerships. Now, back to the lesson. It's a character thing. So, This is the first episode of the series, Government Contracts for Commercial Real Estate, Veteran Housing, Facilities, and everything in between. If you touch real estate in any way, broker, owner, developer, investor, institution, this series is designed specifically for you. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because infrastructure is the real wealth game, and we are just getting started. All right, now, there are so many other aspects about this that we're going to discuss. We're going to take every concept that I just talked about, and we're going to take a deeper dive into each one. But it is so important that you understand why commercial real estate is really the smartest play in government contracting. It is. I mean, here's one thing most people never talk about. When you sign a lease with the government, they typically stay in place anywhere from 20 to 28 years. So think about all the things that you want to provide, not only for you, but for those you love who will come after you. So commercial real estate is really it's underestimated, and it's a lot of quiet money moves this way. But this is what we want to get most of you to start thinking about, because so many you hear people talk about cleaning contracts. You hear people talk about jet, and look, all of those things are okay. Trucking, all of that stuff is okay within its context, right? But commercial real estate is one of those things that you really want to start considering. Why? Because in some cases, it does not even take a whole lot of capital to get going. You can get going with a letter of intent from a building owner. In fact, there are some building owners who have distressed properties, meaning that they're dealing with negative cap rates. They just want to get rid of it. So many of them will work with you, they'll work out owner financing deals with you. We've done those back in the past when we were still getting started. They will work these deals out with you just so that they can get these things off their books. And you can take this, you can develop it into veteran housing communities. You can develop it into, like we talked about earlier, becoming a FEMA liaison between the agency and hotels. There's so many things that you can do, so many directions you can go. Once again, stick with us and we'll teach you everything you need to know. Talk soon. Bye.